Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Throwing Partners podcast. It's Kirby and Joe here with special guest Nathan, our resident Gritty Tigs fan. It's been a great week for Nathan, not so much for me and Joe. So I'm going to kick it off to Nathan and Joe to talk a little bit about their postseason experiences.
Drive into left. At the wall. It's gone. Tie game.
Well, to get things started on the Astros side, as many of you may already know, the Astros have officially been eliminated from the 2024 postseason and World Series contention. Their streak of 7 straight ALCS appearances has officially ended. They will not make it 8. They were eliminated by the Detroit Tigers, losing 2 straight home games to them in the AL Wildcard Series. The Tigers, just simply outplayed us. In that first game, Tarek Skubal absolutely shoved it down our throat. We had no answer for him. And, leading up to that series, during our last podcast, I even said it. I said that was the one team in the AL I did not want to face. It was because I saw the writing on the wall. They'd been the best pitching. They have the best pitching staff in baseball since August. And that's the whole reason why they've had this crazy turnaround is because they've gotten so much out of their pitchers. And it is chaos, as AJ Hinch described. But it's kind of a controlled chaos that it just works for the roster that they have. So I saw the writing on the wall. That's why I felt like going into the postseason, the Royals would have been the better matchup for the Astros, even though they do have 2 very good starters at the top. I will give it to them, and they're showing it right now in their series against the Yankees. But I knew based on the last 7 postseasons, when the Astros play the hottest team in baseball, which they have more times than not, they do not job done, especially at home. They have won 7 straight games on the road. They have lost 7 straight games at Minute Maid Park. And I've actually been doing some number digging on their home and road splits in the postseason, and the contrast in series that they've won and lost is pretty drastic. Home versus road and wins versus losses. It's insane in my opinion, and it's something that they need to address over the offseason. It needs to be a philosophy change. It needs to be, organizationally, they need to figure out what their problem is at home. Because they just do not hit well in the postseason at home. So that was game 1. Fomber ended up, he didn't do anything that he needed to do. He wasn't able to match Skubal at all. He only went 4 1/3. He gave up 7 hits. He gave up 3 runs, and he was all over the place. Actually, he wasn't all over the place. He was in the zone. He was in the zone too much. He was leaving the ball over the plate too consistently, and the Tigers hitters were taking advantage of it, creating traffic on the bases, especially in that second inning, which is when they scored all 3 runs. But the Astros offense, once again, did not show up. I mean, you're not going to win a game only scoring 1 run in very many postseason games. After Faber came out, the bullpen held it down for the remainder of the game and gave the offense plenty of chances to come back. The Astros offense left 8 men on base, and they were 2 for 7 with runners in scoring position. They had a chance in the 9th inning with both Caratini, Dubon, McCormick, and Hayward coming up to bat, and they just kind of got unlucky. If I'm going to be honest, it was kind of one of those things where you hit the ball hard with especially Caratini and Hayward, and the ball finds a glove. I was telling one of my coworkers it reminded me of the 2018 ALCS with that Benintendi catch because the Astros had traffic there, to tie up the game in the 9th inning, and ball found a glove, and that was kind of how you chalked up game 1. That's kind of what you expected going into the series. Tarek Skubal is going to win the Cy Young. He won the Triple Crown. He's the best pitcher in baseball as I see it right now. And he's definitely showed it again, pitching today in Cleveland, where he shoved it down the Guardians' throats again. I think this is his coming out party as a player, because I don't know if too many people knew who Tarek Scuba was before, these first two postseason games, but he's definitely proven, why he's going to be, in my opinion, unanimous Cy Young winner, and obviously why he won the Triple Crown. But moving on to game 2 of the series, the Astros had no answer for the Chaos Tigers. I don't think an Astros batter saw the same pitcher twice. And they were only able to scratch across 5 hits, scattered over 9 innings. They only scored 2 runs, so that makes 3 total for the series. You're not going to win many postseason series, especially a 3-game wildcard series, only scoring 3 runs in the entire series. It was really bad all around offensively. Again, they left 6 men on base. They were 1 for 6 with runners in scoring position. And this game came down to the bullpen blowing it. Ryan Presley blew it, and Josh Hader blew it. In the 8th and the 9th. The Astros would go up in the bottom of the 8th, going up 2-1, and then Ryan Presley would come in. And they would go up in the bottom of the 7th, and Ryan Presley would give it up in the top of the 8th. My apologies. And it was one of those things where I even said coming into this postseason that was going to be one of their, leaving runners on base and the back end of the bullpen scaring the shit out of me was going to be my biggest concern for the team, and it ended up playing out just like that. They started the season the same way they ended it, with their offense failing them and their bullpen blowing close to marginal leads, which was kind of how they dug themselves in the hole at the beginning of the season, and it's the same way they finished it off. So it was kind of a full circle, moment. But a lot of people had a problem with the way that Jairus Fada managed the bullpen, especially going into that game 1, where he pitched Josh Hader in the 9th inning down 3-1. And I just got to say, I agree with that, because you gave the offense a chance to make a comeback late in the game, and the offense didn't come through. You had the runners there, and the offense did not come through. So I saw no problem with that. He was getting paid $95 million over 5 years. He should be able to pitch back-to-back days in the postseason. That is what you're paying him for. Ryan Presley is getting paid $15 million to pitch the 8th inning. He should be able to do that. Now, I know that during the season, they didn't bode very much confidence, because there were times where they would go on these streaks where they would blow leads. You didn't feel very comfortable with them coming in, and once again, in this situation, late in the game, close game, which the Astros were, historically bad at this year, they blew the lead, both of them. A lot of people were saying that you should use, your best closers and your best relievers in the most high leverage situations, and throw out the whole, dedicated role scenario. But who else were you going to in the 8th and the 9th to fill those innings? You're not going to anybody else. I mean, you would already use Brian Abreu. He pitched an inning in the 3rd. Hector Neris hasn't been great all year. He's been good. He's been better since the first 2 months of the season. But he showed signs of, uncontrollability. He lacked control at times for, the back half of the season when you picked him up as an Astro. It only made sense to go to those 2 guys after giving Hunter Brown the ball and him pitching 5 2/3, who he shoved. He absolutely dominated the Tigers lineup through 5 2/3 innings. He deserved more out of the Astros offense. I'm gonna once again say that it was the Astros offense that let the team down, while the pitching did blow it at the end. It is what killed the Astros time and time again, is not being able to hit with runners in scoring position. They swung at a clip like they have never swung at before this entire season. I don't know if they had a whole philosophy change over the offseason where their approach just shifted, but I believe they ranked 2nd in the league, only behind the Marlins in swing percentage. And that it screams, it gets the alarm bells ringing, basically, because they aren't being patient. What made the Astros dynasty was them having a good approach at the plate, them taking good pitches, them not swinging at everything. And they honestly, this is going to sound kind of stupid, but they put the ball in play way too much, because they were swinging at any and everything, and they were making contact, but it was not good contact. They weren't being as selective as they had been in the past couple of years, and that's what killed them ultimately, because they time and time again left runners in scoring position, and they left runners on base because they couldn't get timely hits, and they couldn't get timely hits because they were swinging at garbage more times than not. And I mean, that's why they lost. They lost 5-2. Like I said, you're not going to win too many series scoring 3 runs in total. The bullpen blew it at the end, but in my opinion, it was the offense once again at home that let them down.
Well, I agree, Joe. It started in the first series, and then obviously they ended the season that way. Nathan, from the winning team's perspective, let's hear it.
I feel like Joe did an okay job telling it from our perspective too. He's given a real negative perspective there, but I think he covered most of it. Game 1 was, it was pretty much a pitcher's duel up until that second inning where we jumped on Fromber, just a couple pitches up, and we were fortunate enough to hit them for base hits and some RBIs. And after that, yeah, it was just quiet, not a lot going on. And ninth inning, they loaded it up after Jordan had that. I believe it was the ninth inning. Jordan had the double, and they ended up scoring the run and then loaded it up. And we went through, I don't know, the photo book of unknown relievers that we had, and brought in somebody who not a lot of people know. Bo Brisky finally put us out of our misery, and with that Jason Hayward line out, it gave us the win. Let me tell you, on edge for that. I didn't think I was going to be able to ever sit down again. But game 2, I think, was a little more. It was eventful, I think. It was a nice pitcher's duel up until the 5th, is when, or up until the 6th. The 6th inning is when Parker Meadows hit that home run. And let me tell you, being there at Minute Maid, pin drop silent. You couldn't hear a single person in there. And I mean, up until then, I think both of the teams looked really bad, really bad. Excuse me. I think they were both really bad, and just one swing there was just fortunate enough to change the game. And then the Astros bounced back in the bottom of the 7th there. They had it was a sac fly, I believe, to take the lead, and a base hit to tie it. And yeah, and that was then preceded by Joe's beautiful rendition of the 8th inning, where Mr. 3 outs Josh Hader came in and proceeded to lay it all out on the table after Presley did. Andy Ibanez on that 3-run double, that was very big. That was the biggest hit of probably Tigers playoff baseball until today. But it was very clutch and very unlikely. I agree, it was probably really lucky of us to be able to come through in that spot. I think it's just one of those things where it was a timely hit, and I think in the last podcast, I talked about that a little bit. Like, this series was going to come down to timely hits after we had Tarek Skubal. After Schoolboy is going to be all right. Let's put in somebody to throw a couple innings, keep it close, and then we gotta score when we get people on. So I think we did that very well in the series when we needed to. That being said, another thing that Joe did not cover was the Astros grounded in the 3 double plays in game 2.
I think that that goes a lot into my bad contact.
That's true.
That speech. I mean, because they swung, I believe it was like 58% of the pitches they saw this season, which is the highest clip they've had over this entire 7 to 8 year run. They were only second behind, I believe it was the Marlins. It was either the Marlins or the White Sox. It was one of those really bad teams, bottom half of the league. that is not a team that you want to be close to in any statistic. And that just, it screams making contact, but making bad contact. Again, they barreled balls up consistently all year, but they barreled balls up going straight into the ground. They hit into so many double plays. Now, that's something they've done a lot during this golden age of Astros baseball. They hit into a lot of double plays every year in and year out, but it's because they have so much traffic on the bases. But more times than not, they've been able to convert a majority of those opportunities into runs. This year, they weren't able to, and that's ultimately why they lost. As you said, they grounded into 3 double plays, left, I believe, 6 men on base during this last game. They had their opportunities. They squandered it. The Tigers come in, get the timely hits, and they win. I mean, that's it.
I mean, I got to be honest too, Joe. We weren't far behind you guys. We had 8 left on base in game 2, and I know in game 1 we had 11 left on base. So it was definitely, there's opportunities there that we missed as well. But who had the cleaner shit?
Yeah.
I think that's how that ended up going, and it was a good old celebration back at the. You're very happy.
Well, I can't take any serious situation seriously. I've always got to crack a little jokey joke. So after the Astros got beat out, I basically said it's okay, Joe, because the Braves season is going to end in about 3 hours. And sure enough, I was right. So obviously the Braves got beat out in 2 games against the Padres, who I actually picked to win the World Series. The game 1 was, to say the least, it was so reminiscent of the 2022 postseason and the 2023 postseason, for the sheer fact that we had to start A.J. Smith-Shawver, who was not pro-ready, but we needed somebody to take the ball. He didn't pitch well, and that really cost us game 1. Not that it really mattered because we didn't hit anyway. Michael King went out and shoved. He threw 7 innings and had 12 Ks. His stuff looked absolutely electric. I know he's probably going to be like a top 5 Cy Young guy, maybe like top 7, top 8. But man, his stuff looked excellent. The Braves ended up having 15 Ks total. Newsflash: there's only 27 outs I can get in the whole game anyway. So that's a lot of us not hitting the ball at all. The only person that decided to show up to play on offense that day was Michael Harris II, who has been on a very much needed run, because he was having he was having a bad offensive year. He's always played good defense. That has never faded from him. But the offense finally came around in September, and actually these 2 postseason games, which is good to see. At the beginning of the year, I had picked him to finish in the top 3 in MVP, because I was fully expecting him to finally come along as an offensive player. Through September and October, he had like a 950 OPS. If you have a 950 OPS while playing Gold Glove caliber defense, you are going to be a top 5 MVP candidate easily. But needless to say, the Braves bullpen in game 1 went 6 2/3 and only gave up 1 run. And they didn't use a single high leverage guy. The Braves pitching staff kept them in games all season when the offense did absolutely nothing. Game 2, in game 1 also, we saw Fernando Tatis hit one of the biggest home runs I've ever seen in postseason history. That 2-run homer was a moonshot. I don't know if Smith-Shawver was tipping his pitches or not, but if I've ever seen anybody sit on a 94-mile-an-hour fastball, it was that. That dude knew that was coming from, he must have had a dream about it, because that's how much he was sitting on this pitch. So that pretty much sums up game 1. Game 1 sucked. We got shut out 4-0. Game 2, obviously we lost 5-4. Max Fried, potentially his last start as a Brave. I think it was his last start as a Brave. We'll get to some offseason stuff later, but I'm not going to talk about it today. He only went 2 innings and gave up 5 earned runs. He pitched like crap. He got hit on the hip, which they said was bothering him. I don't know how much that's really true, or if he was just, tired of getting beat up out there on the mound. The bullpen, once again, went out and shoved. They gave through 6 innings, they gave up 0 earned runs. So in 12 and 2/3 innings over 2 games, they gave up 1 earned run. There's not a lot of bullpens that can do that, but the Braves bullpen did it pretty much all year. And then once again, the only guy to show up on offense was Michael Harris II. He hit a double and a homer, and he had 2 runs. Jorge Soler also hit a solo shot, but ultimately none of that really mattered because they lost 5-4. The Braves season ended in very familiar fashion. The other team that if the team that they play scores 4 more runs, they lose. They went 11-60 on the year when the other team scored 4 more runs. 11-60. Which tells you that a lot of the time, since they won 89 games, they gave up 3 runs or less. Which, I mean, once again, it just goes back to the strength of the pitching staff all season long that kept them in games. They didn't have a lot of high-scoring games, obviously, which is just so asinine compared to what they had in 2023. But overall, that's pretty much a Braves wrap because offense didn't show up, which happened all year. Pitching staff actually did a pretty good job. So, season's over for them. Now it's time to heal up and be healthy for spring training come mid-February.
Yeah, I think it's kind of crazy that both of our teams started off the season with World Series aspirations and legit chances at, contending for a World Series, and they both ended in disappointment. And here you go with freaking Nathan's Gritty Tigs that had a 1% chance of making the postseason as the calendar flipped to August, and here they are, tied in a 1-1 series against Cleveland Guardians, who I think they have a legitimate shot at beating. Especially after the fight they put up today. I just think that's baseball for you. It's kind of frustrating, sometimes because the Astros over the last 7 years have won it all twice. They've been the last man standing twice, but it feels like each of those 5 years that they've been eliminated, which has been either in the World Series or the ALCS, is they're getting absolutely torched by the hottest team on the face of the planet in that given month. And it's kind of frustrating, but it's also exciting for the game because the best team doesn't always win, in my opinion. I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but I feel like it's true in baseball. I don't think either of the Diamondbacks or the Rangers were the best team in baseball last year. But, in my opinion, it kind of diminishes the 162 because you play 162 to figure out who the best team is, and then you get in this tournament style where if you're hot at the right moment, it doesn't matter, how you were playing at a given time. But, it's just more times than not, the Astros have been eliminated by the hottest team that touched the face of the planet. And this year was the Tigers. I got to give it to them. They just outplayed the Astros and they seemed like they wanted it more. So, speaking of the Tigers, let's hear what your thoughts on Game 1 and Game 2 were from that ALDS series.
Oh, man. Well, like we were talking before we started recording, Game 1 was a blowout. It was 7-0. I watched the first inning of this game. I watched Cleveland put 3 on and clear them off before hitting the 2-run homer. I think it was Lane Thomas. Lane Thomas is a 3-run homer. Sorry. Watched Lane Thomas put the 3-run homer up and had a 5-0 start. And I kind of knew that was what this type of game was going to be. Tyler Holton started the game back-to-back. 1 day of rest off of that Astros game. And then we threw Reese Olson for 5 innings, and he looked pretty good. He had 3 hits, 1 earned run, 4 strikeouts. You can't ask for a bunch more from that guy after being off for a couple months with injury. We brought Ty Madden in. This is one of our rookies. We had Gunther in. We had Kiter Montero come in. All those guys looked pretty good. Madden let in a couple runs, but in that kind of game, it's something you just got to deal with. Our offense on that side, it was rough. We had 4 hits, no runs. This is a game to forget. I knew it was coming. We played way too well against the Astros, and I knew there was a day of regression that was going to come. So it was that day, and it led up to today, which gave me a little bit of anxiety. I had a little bit of the Monday scaries about this. But it's Tarek Skubal. Like you said, he's Triple Crown winner. He's gonna win the Cy Young. He's incredible. 7 innings, 3 hits, 8 Ks. That's the guy that you need to go in and do his thing. And he did his freaking thing. Yeah, offense on both sides was super quiet up until we had the absolute wagon of a nuke from Kerry Carpenter in the 9th, which, I mean, that's a shot heard around the world against the other Cy Young candidate, as Cleveland has been branding the whole year, Emmanuel Clase. I'd like to see what the probability of a home run being the outcome of that at bat before Kerry went up to the plate, because I think I saw he's only let in 2 home runs per the year, and it had been 6 earned runs in the last 6 months or something like that. That's video game numbers that you're talking about, and we won the game off this guy. So it comes back to, we just had that timely hitting. We had runners on when we needed it, and we kept guys off the bases. Will Vest, Bo Breesky again, kept guys off the bases. And when time came, Kerry Carpenter grabbed it, and he took fate into his own hands with this game. So now we're tied up, going back to Detroit. I'm a little more confident in us now. I think we have more than enough opportunity to put this thing away at home. And even if we take one and Cleveland takes another one, they're going to go back on Saturday and face Tarek Skubal. He's going to be ready. That's his 5th day of rest. They got to be shivering in their boots. They need to either win it here or it's over.
I think it's interesting you talked about Clase giving up 3 runs today. I went and found it. So he'd only given up 5 earned runs all season, and then gave up 3 today. So the probability of Carpenter even just getting a run home today was probably less than 10 to 15%, with how good Clase has been. And for him to hit a homer there, it's just wild. I mean, there's just you can't measure vibes. You can't measure luck. You can't measure all of these different intangibles that teams have that are just hot at the right time. I mean, every year there's a team that just seems like everything goes their way, and right now everything is going the Tigers' way, which is great for Nathan, because we got a lot to talk about. Not so much for me and Joe, because nothing went right for our teams all year. So, I mean, speaking of things going right for other teams, I want to talk about the Mets a little bit. So, obviously, the Mets played the Brewers in their wild card series. The Mets took game 1. They ended up dropping game 2, but game 3 is where all the action was. Game 3, the Mets were down 2-0 going into the top of the 9th, before you had 2 guys on, and for Pete Alonso to come up and hit one just over the right field wall. I'm talking about, this ball wasn't 8 foot over that wall at most, maybe less than that. Pretty much a wall scraper. But that ended up putting the Mets up 3-2. They would also score again in that inning and end up winning 4-2. I don't know how these teams picked up on Devin Williams tipping his pitches. I'm sure that they've been looking at film on this guy for the past 3 or 4 months to see if he does any little thing different. But let me tell you, Devin Williams does not give up homers, and Pete Alonso took that ball to the opposite field and absolutely hit a tank with that thing. I don't know how much money Pete Alonso is going to make in the offseason, because his regular season numbers have declined, but he is sure putting up a case that he can hit in the postseason. Unlike some of our favorite players, like Aaron Judge, like Mookie Betts, like Kyle Tucker, just to name a few that seem to be just, that they seem to go ahead and get on the flight early to go to Cancun when the postseason comes. So Pete Alonso hitting that homer just kind of summed up what the Mets have been doing since early June. They've had a lot of things going their way, and they continue to go their way. They ended up splitting in Philly in the division series, which is all honestly that they really needed to do in Philly because Philly is an extremely difficult ballpark to play in. Now they get to take that series back to New York, and there's a good chance that they win that series there. So we'll see. I don't know. I was gonna ask y'all because I was sitting here thinking about. I'm gonna go back to this because I've been wanting to ask this a while. If you get one guy for the next 5 years to start a rotation with, are you going with Scooble or Skeens? I don't care who answers first, but I've been sitting here pondering on it. Scooble or Skeens over the next 5 years?
Hmm. I might be biased. I would take Scooble. I think I'd take Scooble over and over again.
I would take Skeens. I don't know. The stuff is just so nasty,
They're
and
both
he did.
good.
I mean, they're both obviously top of their class. I mean, I think they're both going to win the Cy Young this year. Kirby, I know you hate hearing that, but
So
I think that the narrative. I think that the narrative is going to carry him to a victory over Sale for the Cy Young, just being one of the the only rookies in baseball history to put up those kind of numbers as a pitcher. It's been impressive. I mean, obviously, Scooble has, a couple more years on him. But I think that as we see Skeens, continue to pitch in the big leagues, I think we're going to see, why the hype is what it is. And, I think that he's gonna be a key role in why the Pirates either make the postseason in the next couple of years or don't. So
I think it's really interesting because Skeens is only going to be 23 this next year, and Scooble will actually only be 28. So both of which are really in their primes. Um, I don't know if I could pick one, to be honest with you. I would just say just give me one and I'll take it. I don't care who it is. Both of them are electric. Both of them, they actually both of them seem to be very collected on the mound. They don't seem to let the big moment get to them. I think I want to say Skeens, but the way Scooble's pitching right now in the postseason, it's hard not to pick him. He reminds me of Chris Sale a lot, with the kind of the FU attitude, and I like that on a postseason team a lot.
Yeah, I agree. Skeens, it's hard. We've known probably since the College World Series that Skeens has just been the guy who's ready for the moment. I mean, they probably could have brought Skeens straight off the draft, straight up to the bigs, and he probably would have made immediate impact. I mean, he was down there twiddling with his thumbs in AAA the whole year, and then he comes up and he's just, oh, okay, he's one of the best pitchers in the National League already. Okay, but yeah, I agree. I mean, Scooble is only 27 right now. 5 more years. I mean, he might have 5. Well, I'm gonna knock on wood right now, but he could have the 5 best years of maybe any pitcher we've ever seen. But I think they both have a lot of good qualities. I think they're both gritty. I mean, they are very detail oriented. They just go through and they chop everybody up in between. It's definitely hard to pick one or two, and the age difference only being 4 years, I don't know if it really makes a lot of a difference there. I think Scooble being just under the threshold of 30 years old, it still catches his prime years, so you don't really you don't really get any of that decline with age.
Definitely. Okay, let's move into probably one of the more electric series that's going on right now in the Padres and the Dodgers. We saw the Dodgers take game one, and the Padres won last night, and they absolutely crushed the Dodgers. Does anybody have any thoughts on the first 2 games of that series?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Padres came out swinging in the first couple innings in both of those games. They really jumped on top of the Dodgers rotation to kind of start. Now in the first game, the Dodgers offense and Shohei Ohtani were able to immediately make a comeback. As I believe they tied Shohei Ohtani tied the game immediately after San Diego jumped out to a 3-run lead in that first game. But yeah, I think this is going to be a very offensive heavy series. Ohtani homers in his first postseason at bat, and he gave everybody what he wanted. He matched the hype. Everybody was wondering how he was going to perform in the biggest stage. If he was going to be an Aaron Judge or if he was going to be, like a Jose Altuve. And, turns out that he's not, so far, he's not performed, like Aaron Judge, who has the highest strikeout percentage among batters with a minimum of 200 plate appearances, followed up by Martin Maldonado, Astros legend. But we'll get to that in a minute. Yeah, so the Dodgers offense was able to immediately match San Diego, immediately scoring 3 runs in the bottom of the second, and then San Diego would score 2 in the top of the third. But again, the Dodgers would follow up immediately, or not immediately, but in the bottom of the fourth, and put up 3 and then 1 in the fourth and the fifth. Which put them at 7, leading them past the San Diego Padres with a score of 7-5. Ohtani, had 2 hits. He had 2 runs. He scored 2 runs. Mookie Betts got on base once. Or no, actually, he got on base 3 times by walking, but he had no hits. He scored once. Freeman had 2 hits. Teoscar Hernandez had a hit, and then that was pretty much it for the lineup. The middle 3 of the lineup, Chris Taylor, Max Muncy, and Will Smith didn't do much, but Gavin Lux and Tommy Edman, each had 2 hits. So they kind of spread out the hits, put up 7 runs. They did good. Yamamoto did not do good. He pitched 3 innings, gave up 5 runs. And then the rest of the Dodgers bullpen after that held it down for the rest of the game. So that was pretty good to see from the Dodgers bullpen if you are a Dodgers fan. And then, the Padres, Dylan Cease did not pitch well. He kind of matched Yamamoto. He went bar for bar. He pitched 3 1/3, gave up 6 hits and 5 runs. That kind of, hurt them. That was their best pitcher. Although Yu Darvish did pitch really well yesterday. So it is what it is. Game 2, let's see. Let me pull this up because I did not have the other one up. Game 2, the Padres absolutely jumped on San Diego. I mean, the Padres absolutely jumped on LA. They won 10-2. Jack Flaherty did not pitch. Let's see. He pitched okay. No, he pitched. For what they gave up for him, he did not pitch good. He pitched 5 1/3 innings. He gave up 5 hits and 4 runs. Yu Darvish absolutely shined. He pitched 7 innings. He gave up 1 earned run, and he only gave up 3 hits. He only had 3 strikeouts though. But he was able to dominate the Dodgers lineup and held them quiet. Now the Padres offense absolutely went off. Tatis went off. Profar went off. Machado had a hit. Merrill had a big home run too. There's all around domination by the Padres, who will take the series back to San Diego, tied 1-1. And I think this puts them in a good spot. The rivalry is heated. Dodgers fans are clowns, and we're throwing stuff at the Padres outfield. And then they went to Twitter and started crying about the way that Fernando Tatis was mocking them, sticking his tongue out at them, and how Profar was clowning them after robbing that huge home run from Mookie Betts. But it's a heated rivalry, and they like to play it off like it isn't. Because they like to act like they don't care and they're higher than everybody, but they're not. Year in and year out, they find a way to blow it, even after having a great offseason and having, this billion-dollar team. Um, they still find a way to, mismanage or choke and when it matters the most. So, that's where we're at right now with that series. It's been a really good series so far. And it's a 1-1 headed back to San Diego, and I'm excited to see what that series, what the rest of that series has in store for us tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only way that the Dodgers have a chance to win that series is to take Game 3 against Michael King. And we saw what he did against the Braves, who are obviously the Dodgers have a better lineup. But if he does anything near that against the Dodgers, the Padres are going to take Game 3. And then they're going to come out roaring in Game 4 and want to go ahead and win that series in San Diego. I'm going to say that the Padres win that series. I'm also going to say that the Mets end up winning their series. Now the Tigers and the Guardians series, golly, after what happened today, it's hard not to pick the Tigers, especially going home. Same with Kansas City. Kansas City's winning right now. I think Kansas City could take that home and win Game 3 there. It's hard not to pick these teams that are going home for Game 3 with the series tied, because most of the teams that are going home but also in Game 3, they actually have the better pitching matchup. So it's hard not to pick them. I don't know. What do y'all think?
Well, I would tell you if it was the Astros and they were tied 1-1, I would not pick them because they have not played well at home over the last two postseasons. And really, honestly, outside of 2017 and 2022, they haven't played well at home. And I can already hear people making jokes about 2017, but they did it in 2022 as well. They played well at home then, but outside of that, 2019, they didn't play well. Obviously, 2023, they didn't play well. 2024, they got swept at home. So I would take any team going back home except the Astros. So yeah, I honestly, I think that if Kansas City is able to hold on for dear life, right now, going back home, I think that they have a really good opportunity of at least winning one at home and bringing it back to New York for a Game 5, potentially. So I can see that being a possibility. And then for the Tigers, I actually feel really confident about their ability to extend that series as well if they need to. As Nathan mentioned, Scooble should be ready for Saturday, right? So that what game would that be? That would be Game 4,
5.
5. That would be Game 5. So if they were able to close that out, that would obviously if they're able to get it to that point, I feel confident in their ability to win this series as well. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much the AL side of things. I think that the Dodgers and the Padres, I think that that's going to go a full 5 as well. But I wouldn't feel as confident as I do about the other teams in a Game 5 scenario. Than I do the Tigers or the Royals in a Game 5 scenario. I think the Padres have been the hottest team in baseball. And in the Game 5, anything can happen. But I think that, they've shown over the last 3 months why they are hottest team in baseball alongside the Tigers. And I think that they have a really good chance of winning that series in 5. They got some really bad news yesterday that Joe Musgrove is going to, I believe, miss the 2025 season because he had Tommy John surgery. So that's a big blow to them and their morale. But I doubt that affects them during this postseason run, but it just sucks because he's a budding superstar and, kind of one of their 3-headed monsters in that rotation, down for the count. And then for the Mets and the Phillies series, I think that as crazy as that series has been, and the Mets have really pushed the Phillies to the limit. Obviously, they were able to answer the bell in that second game with the Castellanos walk-off, but the Mets have really pushed the Phillies, and I think that they've handled them pretty well, despite losing that game too. But I do think that the Phillies will eventually overcome them. I don't know if y'all have the same thoughts on that series, but I think that's. I mean, we've have like 4 really good series. And for once, it kind of feels good to not have to stress out about watching my team be in one of these crazy series, because each one of these series has had their moments where you just absolutely lose your mind if you're a general baseball fan, because they've had some crazy moments thus far.
Nathan, what do you think? How have you been feeling? What do you think about the rest of these postseason teams that are left? Who's going to move on?
I mean, going home, KC taking this home, I think it might be wrapped up. I was trying to look it up while you guys were talking. Kansas City is 45-36 at home this year, and just like Cleveland, they're one of those teams where you get them at home, you don't want to be there. Which, thankfully for us right now, we're taking that home split. But these Yankee guys, I don't know, they're going to Kansas City's house where they're really good at home, and they're expecting to take something out of it. So I think KC might steal that one. The Mets and the Phillies, yeah, I think this is just the absolute one of the dogfights that we're looking at. I think Padres and Dodgers are different. They're in a different echelon of dogfight. Like, that's pure firepower just on the field. I think these two teams, you're talking like, whose city is more grittier? Like Philadelphia, New York. It doesn't get like grittier, grosser than that. Like, I think the bank definitely played a little bit in the game too. Game 1, excuse me. Game 1, it was close, but game 2, the bank definitely played in. So I think really the Mets going home, they have a really good chance to take this one. I guess we just have to see who's available to pitch versus who the Phillies have to pitch and kind of matchups you have there. I guess it's what it's going to come down to. Padres, Dodgers, man. Padres taking a home split is probably the second best thing that could happen. If they would have took both games, I think Dodger fans would have packed it up. There's no blue at Petco, but I mean, even going back 1-1, it's hard. The Padres play hard at home. They love playing at home, and especially against the Dodgers, them fans are going to show up. They're going to be loud, and these two teams are going to play their asses off. But I think Padres definitely going to come out on top there. But I think Padres, Mets, and I'm really, really putting my bias in here. Tigers, Royals in the ALCS is what I'm seeing right now.
Words I thought we would never hear at the beginning of the year was a Tigers Royal.
God, no.
Yes.
God, no.
Absolutely not.
I mean, I saw I saw the Royals not losing 100 games. I think that's fair to say. Maybe they lose 90. Maybe they're even a 500 team. But to be, on the verge of possibly going to the ALCS, nobody predicted that. But they had a good offseason. They spent wisely. They got some good arms. And then obviously they have a superstar in Bobby Witt Jr. So, I mean, the stars are really lining up for them. And they got Vinny Pasquantino back, which is a big deal for them as well. Gentlemen, is there anything else that you want to discuss tonight?
Well, we didn't talk about the Orioles and what a major letdown they were. I get that, facing the Cole Reagans and Seth Lugo back to back in a 3-game series is obviously it's not gonna bode well for anybody. Both of those games were absolutely were an absolute masterclass by both of them, and they just shoved it down the Orioles' throats. Honestly, like, just where's the offense? Like, this was an offense that was supposed to be one of the best in baseball this year. They had been, pretty good all year, and then they just disappeared under the lights. People were saying that this was going to be the next Astros team. I don't remember the Astros, albeit how bad they have been lately, but I don't remember the Astros, playing this poorly. Not not during their run. They've had 2 shots already, to cement themselves as a legit contender, and they've flopped both times. Last year against the Rangers, and then this year against the Royals. So I don't know what's going on with them. They've got some decisions to make over the offseason because this is the second year in a row where their young core of budding superstars hasn't been able to perform in the bright lights of October, which I think is obviously a big letdown for the city, because that's two series where they haven't won a game. I mean, it's just that simple. They haven't won a game in the postseason. They've been back to years and they've been swept both times. So, I mean, I think they have some retooling to do, some rethinking as an organization. It's just it's kind of crazy that they're in that spot because they played so well over the last two regular seasons, and then just to get in the postseason and not be able to do anything is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I agree. And they're about to get worse this offseason because they're going to lose Corbin Burns and they're also going to lose Anthony Santander. Arguably their best bat in the second half and their ace. Unless they're going to spend some money, they're actually going to get worse. And they traded off a really good prospect to the Marlins. I can't even think of his name right now. Who actually played really well for the Marlins. But it's one of those things like, everybody was so happy with what the Orioles were doing. Oh, the Orioles are, they're doing the rebuild right. They've got all the big names, all the big superstars. They're going to go out and do well in the postseason. And then everybody gave the Tigers such a hard time about their rebuild. Well, guess what? The Tigers are winning postseason games. The Orioles aren't. So,
Yep.
it all comes down to really who does well in October, and the Orioles haven't done that.
Those 2 names you were looking for, Connor Norby and Kyle Stowers.
Yes, Norby is the one I was talking about. Yes. And the thing is, too, is their trade deadline this year did them absolutely no good. They the worst trade deadline probably in the last 10 years for a team that's contending. Absolutely abysmal trade deadline. That none of their pieces that they got at the trade deadline helped them on the postseason roster at all.
Yeah, so speaking of that was actually something that I really wanted to talk about, as it relates to the Astros. And, I was really disappointed that the Astros never fully got to see the Kikuchi trade play out to the way that they really intended to do, not being able to push it to a game 3. That's what you traded for Yusei Kikuchi for, was that exact moment. Dana Brown came out and said that he was their 3 starter at the trade deadline when everybody thought that he was just going to be an innings eater. And it was really disappointing because I was actually really looking forward to seeing what Kikuchi was going to be able to do in an elimination game. I kind of hope that the Astros are able to re-sign him to a team-friendly deal over the offseason. I do think that he wants to stay here based on everything that he said. I mean, he came out and he was pretty candid during some of the interviews that he gave late in the season, saying that, he saw what everybody was saying about the trade and he wanted to just go out there and shove it down everybody's throats and prove that what Dana Brown did was the right thing to do. And he said that he's loved it here so far. And I get that can be all cliche. He could just be saying that as lip service, but I would like to see him back. And hot take, I would actually trade Framber Valdez. I think that you could get a top 100 prospect for him. I think that you could get a MLB ready prospect and then probably a mid-tier prospect all in one trade for him. Because he is a potential Cy Young candidate year in and year out. And I think that, you're not going to be able to extend him, or you're not going to want to extend him this offseason. I think that you trade him, get as much as you can for him, because you will be giving a team, potentially a contending team, a full year of service for him. And I think that that's where his highest value is at. Because you need to rebuild the farm because of the Kikuchi trade. And so I'm hoping that you can get a couple pieces for him that can contribute to the big league team in a jiff. because I think that the Astros have a lot of decision making to make over this offseason. I think that this offseason will be the most crucial offseason they've had in the last couple of years. If they want to keep the window extended, I also just want to throw out a very not so fun tidbit. The Astros in the last 2 seasons, when trailing after the 8th inning, trailing after the 7th inning, and going into the 8th, were 4-119.
Good.
So
Wow.
so they have been really bad the last 2 years when trailing at or after 8. And I think that's they also need to address as a team. Now, obviously, the 1.5 of those seasons they were employing 2 of the worst qualified hitters in MLB at the time, and then obviously for half a season this year, employing the worst qualified hitter in MLB, Jose Abreu and Martin Maldonado, back-to-back seasons. But that obviously didn't get better when neither one of those were on the team. So I think that that's something they need to address. They need to address the offense. And that's something that we can get into more in depth, because I do have targets that I'd like to discuss the Astros going out and getting. But obviously we're in postseason mode right now, and I will save that for an offseason breakdown. But just a not so fun fact that I wanted to share.
Wow. Well, I don't know that there's anything that can top that to conclude our pod tonight. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We really appreciate it. If you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Throwing Partners Podcast. And then also to remember that we are on Apple Podcasts. You can listen to us while you're at the gym, or if you're on your way to work, or wherever you'd like. And please remember, if you listen to us on Apple, to please leave us a 5-star review. That actually helps boost the show and for other people to see it. So thank you, everybody, and have a great week.